Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It is that time again, and I enjoyed the format I did last month where I combined my monthly reading wrap-up, TBR, and books that I accumulated, a little book haul. So I'm planning to do the same thing this time around, and let's get into it because I'm ready. Red Thunder, which is like the knockoff version of Red Bull from Aldi, and I did just crack it open because I did my whole setup, was ready to film, and then my battery started dying, and then my memory card didn't have that much space on it, so I had to do some rearranging, and now I'm back. But I simply could not go on without more energy. I will start with my reading wrap up. So I read a total of 5 books in the month of April, and 2 of those were audiobooks, 3 were physical books. And I know you're probably wondering, why aren't there any Kindle reads in there? That's very unlike you, Danielle. And this is true, but I was reading on my Kindle. I was in fact reading Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, part of the Throne of Glass series, which I still have not finished. I'm ashamed to admit it. This book probably holds the record for having been on my TBR the longest amount of time. Like, I just am continuing to carry it over month to month because it's taking me forever to finish it. That's the reality. But I am determined to finish it, like, today. So, mark my words. Anyways, let's not focus on my shortcomings. Let's focus on my accomplishments. So, I did, in fact, read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This is the first of an interconnected series, and I did in fact buy the whole series before even reading the first book. I also bought the UK covers. I've learned my lesson since that time of my life that I should definitely read the first book before I decide to commit to a whole series, but I digress. This is one of the books on my 26 books to read in 2026, and I am very glad that I read it earlier in the year. A lot of people describe this book as a British version of Gossip Girl, and I would say that is fairly accurate. You have a lot of the same elements. You have the high society, rich folk, and you have a friend group that the story focuses on, but it's more specifically about Magnolia and BJ as a couple, and you're following their relationship dynamic and learning all about that in this book. It does contain fake dating. That is actually the reason I picked this up, because I did my TBR jar picks my reads video, and the prompt I picked was fake dating trope. And when I looked it up, I found that there is fake dating in this book. So obviously now I know what that fake dating situation is all about. There's things I liked about this book and things I didn't like about this book. We'll start with the positives. So I did enjoy the writing style, particularly when describing feelings or emotions. I thought that it was really well done. And this is very messy in an entertaining way. So if you're the type of person who loves gossip or reality TV, I feel like you would love this book. I also love the friendships because a found family is always going to do it for me. There's a couple things that were repetitive about this book. The first being the toxicity, which I feel like just made this book longer than it needed to be. Like, you get the picture of how toxic their relationship is pretty early on, but they just keep driving that same point home over and over, and I just don't really feel like it's necessary. And then I don't know if this is just supposed to be like a quirk or a personality trait of Magnolia's, but she describes clothing in a very excessive way. And it's like designer clothing, but she knows exactly what brand it's from, what line it's from, all of the details, describes it. And I just don't know why it's such a big element of the book. I'm genuinely confused, so if there is a reason for this, please let me know. I would love to be educated. I wasn't fully invested in Magnolia and BJ's relationship because I didn't really get to see their relationship develop except in the occasional flashback. I had this thought pretty early on and I thought it might change, but that thought is that most of the characters are unlikable, and now that I finished the book, I can tell you I still think that most of them are unlikable. I am holding out hope for some really good character development by the end of the series, hopefully. Again, I have the rest of the series, so I will be continuing it. And I know the next book is centered around Daisy and Christian, and I have heard a lot of people prefer those books over the Magnolia and BJ books, so we shall see. Usually when I like certain elements of a book and don't like other elements, I will rate a book 3 stars, and that is what I gave this one. The next book I read is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Can we just take a moment first for the sprayed edge? This is how you do a sprayed edge if you're going to do one, honestly. It is absolutely stunning and probably like my favorite in my whole collection. This is a historical fiction, but more than that, it is a love story, and the way that it's told is just genius. It goes between 2 different timelines, past and present. Past being Joan becoming an astronaut, so you go through all of the training and preparation that it takes to become an astronaut, and then the present timeline is a mission that she is assisting with from the control center, so she is communicating with the crew that is going to space. From the very beginning, like first chapter of this book, I was enamored with the writing and already felt connected to the characters. And for an author to do that, I feel like it takes a lot of talent and very intentional writing style to do. Like, that doesn't happen often for me. I'm also in a very space time of my life right now, which is probably why I love this so much, because I read Project Hail Mary around the end of last year, listened to the audiobook for it, and then watched the movie that came out in March, which I also loved and rated 5 stars. And then right after that, the Artemis 2 rocket went up to space and orbited around the moon. And then I read this. So I, like I said, have just been loving all things space related right now. The commentary about women working in male dominated fields is absolutely spot on, and I felt like I could relate to Joan's personality in certain ways. This book was just very thought-provoking, and not only did I learn so much about astronautics, but I feel like it genuinely changed the way I look at the world. So if you couldn't tell already, this is a 5-star read. My first of the year, and my first in a pretty long time, and I'm just so happy for it. This is just gonna forever have a special place in my heart. Then I finished The Bright Years by Sarah DeMoff, and this was a highly anticipated read just because of how many good things I've heard about it, and honestly, it was a 5-star prediction. Didn't end up being 5 stars for me, but I still did really like it. So this is all about the Bright family, and you follow them throughout years and years of their lives and hitting certain important milestones of their lives. This explores so many themes like love, loss, forgiveness, generational trauma, and it does it well. This book is told in 3 different point of views from 3 different characters, and it isn't alternating those point of views all throughout. There's 3 separate sections of the book, one for each of them. And because of that, I feel like I definitely came to care for the characters, but they always felt just out of reach for me, and I know that I didn't really relate to them too much, but that's not always necessary for me to love a book. I think the difference is when I can feel what they're feeling. I don't need to necessarily feel like they are the same person as I am, but if I can feel whatever it is that they're feeling or experiencing, even though I have not gone through that same experience, I feel like that's what makes the difference. With that, I fully expected to cry at the end, and it just didn't impact me in the way that I thought it would. But still a really, really great book. There are so many annotations I have in here, and a lot of the quotes are still very hard hitting. So I did rate this one 3.75 stars, and I am looking forward to reading her other book that is coming out very soon. I have the ARC for it, and I'm planning to read it next on my Kindle. It is The Burning Side. So stay tuned. Maybe I will like that one even more. Now for the audiobooks I listened to, the first is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I'm so glad I finally got to this. I feel like I was late to the game on it. But I'm even more excited to watch the show now that I've read the book. But this is all about Elizabeth Zott, who is a scientist, and she finds herself out of a job because of a situation that happens. And of course she needs that. So she actually gets offered a job on a TV show, and it's to host a cooking show. And she is very passionate about science, of course, so she incorporates like chemistry into cooking. And it is very, very interesting. I love Elizabeth Zott. She is an icon, a feminist icon. The writing is really interesting in this one. I feel like it's unique in the sense that you kind of get different points of view, and those different points of view are what allowed me to understand those characters on a deeper level, similar to The Bright Years, but I feel like it was done even better in this book. The writing was also very thought-provoking and quippy and inspiring. Like, there were moments where I got chills from it. Again, similar to Atmosphere, a woman in a male-dominated field, I loved. The only thing is that the ending felt a little bit rushed and unsatisfying to me personally, so I ended up rating this 4 stars. And then another audiobook I also got from Libby is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, and this one is about a couple who lives in the British countryside, and it actually ends up being about a bit of a love triangle. So this book was not really what I expected. I don't know what I expected. I didn't like read the synopsis too much before I went into it, but it was really well written, but I felt like it was a little too simple in my opinion. Like, the story of it was interesting to read and follow. It is another one of those books that goes through past and present timelines. The past timeline is following a love story and a relationship, and then the present timeline is following a trial, actually, in a courtroom. The timing of that was crazy, by the way, because I got called to jury duty the same time that I was listening to this audiobook, and was literally like listening to the trial scenes on my way to a courthouse. I think the theme of grief in this book is the most hard-hitting, but it was another one of those where there was something about it that had me a little bit disconnected from the characters, so I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. Let's move on to my little book haul. I love the idea of just throwing in here the books that I purchased since the last time I filmed, and I actually did order more. I ordered my book of the month and an add-on with my book of the month, but they haven't arrived yet, so that will be for a future video. But I did get 2 other books, so let me show you. I just put them in this cutie bag because I wanted to show it off. This is from my local indie bookstore, and I just love the design on it of the bookshelf. So this first book I actually bought from BJ's, which I know is random, but my BJ's does have a book selection that is really good, honestly. They keep up with a lot of the new releases that come out, and the prices are not bad either. It's usually a little bit less than you would find at like a Barnes & Noble. And the book I got is Starside by Alex Astor. Now, mind you, I have yet to read any Alex Astor books. I want to read the Light Lark series. I actually have it on my Libby as a hold right now, but have not gotten around to it yet. This is her first adult fantasy romance, and I had to get it because of these edges. Again, this is a sprayed edge done right, in my opinion. The design with like the lightning and the dragon, it reminds me of Fourth Wing, but I just really wanted to make sure that I got like the first printed edition of this book to get that edge. Not that I'm in a rush to read it, but I have been seeing a lot of the book girlies reading this recently and really liking it, so it is tempting me to bump it up on the TBR a little bit. Can we just take a moment for this naked hardcover, because that is such a cool design. It says, enter the enchanting and deadly world of Starside, where swords have magic and power isn't inherited, it's claimed. I know this is enemies to lovers, and I have heard little snippets here and there of it, but I am really looking forward to it. The next book is the one I got from my local bookstore, and it is We Burned So Bright by TJ Klune. TJ Klune is the same author that wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I loved. I rated it 5 stars. And what really sold me on this is a couple of things. First, the fact that it's so short. This is like a tiny little book. I feel like I could read it in one sitting if I had like a day to just read. And I am a slow reader, so that's saying a lot. And also because it is an autographed copy, so it's got TJ Klune's signature right at the front. Then I read the synopsis and it does sound really interesting. Basically, the world is ending and there is this couple who is racing against the clock to make it from Maine to Washington State to take care of some unfinished business before it's all over. And I think you see the people that they encounter on that road trip. And I feel like this is just going to have such good commentary on mortality and existentialism. And I am a little bit scared, but also those are things that I think about all of the time. Not always, but especially recently in my adult life, I have thought about those things a lot. And I feel like this could just be really comforting, like a warm hug. And I know that's a crazy thing to say about a book that is about the end of the world, but knowing TJ Klune's writing, I feel like it will be that way. Now it is time to go through the books on my TBR. These 3 are on my physical TBR, but I'm honestly going to mostly be focusing on Kindle reads this month because I have 3 arcs I need to catch up on. First, one of my carryovers from April, which I talked about earlier, which is Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. Literally am in the very last bit of this, like almost 90% through the book. So again, I will be finishing it today, the day that I am filming this. Then, because April showers bring May flowers, I want to read The Names by Florence Knapp. Of course, there's flowers on the cover. This is another general fiction book that explores the difference that your name can make to your life. It literally says the extraordinary novel that asks, can a name change the course of a life? Which is a very interesting concept to me. Then I would love to get around to Heart the Lover by Lily King. This is the book that I purchased when I went to Chicago in March, and it's actually another signed copy, which is so cool. This is a magnificent and intimate new novel of desire, friendship, and the lasting impact of first love. So I feel like it is more of like that literary fiction genre, but it is following a love story and a couple. This is the same author as Writers and Lovers, which I have never read, but I'm still just gonna jump right into this one. If I want to go back to Writers and Lovers, I will. But the reason why I want to read this month is because I am actually going to Boston for the first time, and this book takes place there from what I could tell in my quick Google search. And I love to read a book that takes place in a place that I'm visiting or traveling to. I kind of want to do a vlog about it because Sarah Caroli does that with her Booked In series, where she reads a book that takes place in the same location that she's visiting, and I just love that parallel. It is so satisfying to me. Then I'm listening to an audiobook. It is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a memoir, and it is Chanel telling her story of being sexually assaulted. I just recently discovered that this existed, and as soon as I heard what it was about, I wanted to dive right in because this has become a special area of interest for me lately. I just recently learned a lot about the injustices that people, and specifically women, face when this happens to them, and it says that this will transform the way we think about sexual assault, challenging our beliefs about what is acceptable and speaking truth to the tumultuous reality of healing. It introduces readers to an extraordinary writer, one whose words have already changed our world. Entwining pain, resilience, and humor, this memoir will stand as a modern classic. Then I looked at the ratings. This has 4.8 stars based on 63,336 reviews. That's on Storygraph, and that is such a high, like, average rating for all of those reviews. And not everybody who reads memoirs even rates them. So I feel like if everybody who did rated them, it could be even higher. But I just think this is one that I'm going to remember forever. Now let's go through the arcs I really need to get caught up on. These are all on NetGalley, and the first is To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke Fast. This is a dystopian romance. It's actually already been published. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's also available in bookstores. It was published back in March. But I still want to read it and leave my review for it because I'm trying to have a good ratio, okay? And this one I think is really going to capture my attention just because I recently read Daggermouth, which is also a dystopian romance, and let me tell you, it was really, really good. And I think it's because I haven't read dystopian in quite a while. So now that I have started that kick back up again, I feel like I'm going to enjoy. Then we have The Burning Side by Sarah DeMoff, same author as The Bright Years. This is her newest release, and let me see what it's about because I honestly don't even remember. It says, the story of April and Leo, a couple on the brink of collapse. When their house goes up in flames, family secrets and thorny histories emerge as they are forced to decide what is worth salvaging. Then we have Dolly All the Time by Annabelle Monaghan, and that is the same author that wrote a few books I have on my shelf. Let me get them for you. So these are the ones from her that I have read. We have Same Time Next Summer, which was a 5-star read for me. Love this book so much. Summer Romance and Nora Goes Off Script. I also have It's a Love Story, which she came out with last year, but it's still sitting on my TBR card, of course, because I haven't gotten around to it. This description says, a hardworking single mom returns to her seaside hometown and stumbles into a fake dating situationship with a wealthy workaholic scion. I do love fake dating. I feel like it could be fun. And the setting of her books are so perfect for the summertime, which we are starting to get into. It's not officially summer, but it's feeling like it is here in Florida. That is a wrap on my April reading wrap up, book haul, and May TBR. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. I am just trying to make sure everything works properly before I film this YouTube video.